Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to dive into the extrude feature and 3D modeling. In the previous videos, when we were talking about sketch concepts or when we were working on some exercises together in this tutorial, we used the extrude feature a few times and we used it for basic geometries, and it's probably the most commonly used 3D modeling feature because that's how you add material or cut material. It's commonly used to modify the 3D object. We talked about it a little bit, but now in this video we're going to talk about it in a little bit more detail. And before we create our sketch, notice that your extrude option here is on the left, and you have right next to start 2D sketch. So let's start a 2D sketch on XY plane, and let's draw a 2-point rectangle starting from the origin point, and let's assign some dimensions to it. And you can assign different dimensions if you want your geometry to look different. 30 by 50. Let's finish this sketch, and now we have a fully defined sketch appeared in the browser. Now we can apply a modeling action to it. If I click on extrude, and I can keep my mouse on it, and that shows me the preview of the feature. And notice that the shortcut for the extrude option is E on your shortcut on your keyboard, or you have the extrude option available in your right click menu as well. So let's click on extrude, and notice that it automatically applied the extrusion feature on this only sketch that is available on the screen. It didn't even wait for me to select a sketch because that's the only sketch that is available. So it already filled out these selections for me. I can just clear these selections, and now the material goes away because Inventor, understands that I want to select it manually. So now the red arrow always indicates that Inventor requires more information. In this case, it requires me to select a sketch to apply the modeling action to. So now I can select this, and now it applied the 10 millimeter of an extrusion. This from is a bit of an advanced feature. It basically, what it does is you can sketch on one plane, and then you can extrude from another plane. We'll talk about that in more detail later. Well, let's look at the selections we have under the Behavior tab under the Extrusion Properties window. So you can see that you can change the direction of the extrusion. Default direction is this way, and this orange brownish color arrow shows you that, shows you the direction of the extrusion. You can flip it by selecting the flipped version on the direction menu. Now it is a 10 millimeters of an extrusion to the other way. Or you can change it to symmetrical. Now it applies 5 millimeters to this way, 5 millimeters the other way. And this is pretty commonly used because now you're making it symmetrical and taking advantage of the symmetry of the geometry. The other option is asymmetrical. Some applications, for some applications, it's pretty useful, but not as commonly used as the other options. This is basically you want to apply, say, 30 millimeters to one direction, 5 millimeters to the other direction. You can do that with this option. Let's go back to default, enter 15 millimeters. Now, as I enter the value, notice that the model updates instantly. And again, you can just go to this text box and you can enter the distance. We're going to talk about the bodies and solids later. This is basically creating a solid right now. And advanced properties, we're going to talk about them in more detail later. But right now, let's finish the sketch. But before we close it, notice that there are limited selections here. I don't know if you noticed in the previous videos, I had couple other options here, and you cannot see them in this menu right now because this is the first 3D object you are creating. That's why you don't see that many options. For example, one option we will see in a second is the cut option. We can't cut anything because you haven't created anything. That's why Inventor is not giving you those selections in the first window you have whenever you click on extrude. So let's click on OK, and extrusion, now this extrusion consumed the sketch, and it is in the browser tree. So let's right click, select new sketch, and maybe select this face here. We talked about project geometry feature in the previous video. So let's right click and select project geometry and select this face. That way we are taking advantage of the edges of this 3D object, and we don't have to draw more circles and rectangles. We're taking advantage of that geometry. So now we can draw our sketch here. Let's draw a rectangle. And let's say this rectangle is 5 millimeters away from this side and 5 millimeters away from this side. But instead of entering 5 millimeters, I'm going to select this 5 millimeters here, so they change at the same time. And then I can come here and select 5 here as well. And well, instead of typing 5, I'm going to select this distance again. That way, if I ever come back and if I want to update this design, say 8 millimeters, everything updates accordingly. So let's go back to 5 millimeters and finish that sketch. And let's click on Extrude again. And now notice that it doesn't automatically select the profile for me because there are multiple options this time. I can extrude this side or I can extrude this side. So let's click on this internal, inside the rectangle. Now it is, again, as a default, it applied this direction and it kept the latest value I entered. The latest extrusion I applied was 15 millimeters. That's why it is also giving me 15 millimeters as the default value. And again, I can flip this. Notice that Inventor understands that if I'm flipping it, I'm probably trying to cut it. That's why it switches the extrusion type from join to cut. Now it is cutting material for 15 millimeters for me. And I can technically use the flipped version, and that way it is now cutting 15 millimeters, and now it's 7.5 on this side and 7.5 on the other side. Again, I can do the asymmetrical. I can technically cut a different distance on this side and different distance on the other side as well. And notice that I have those options under the output menu available to me right now. I can go back to default and I can, right now, join option is selected as a default option. I can just select cut. And right now, in this direction, it is trying to cut something, but there is no material there. I can just flip and then I can cut material to that side. So let me just close that and open the extrude. And for example, if I select cut here, it automatically updated the direction. Let me do that again. So let's select extrude, select this feature. Also, let's select cut again. It updated the direction for me. And notice that I can also manually modify the arrow as well. So I can, for example, just drag it and kind of manually modify the dimension here, dimension distance it's going to cut. And when I come to this side, it should automatically update. So when I go to extrude, select this. Notice that if I drag it back, it cuts. If I drag it forward, it adds material. I can use it like that too. So if I want to cut all the way through this material, I can technically do this, right? I can say, for example, it cuts for 30 millimeters. And then let's click OK. Now it looks like a good design, but it is not very practical design because if I come back to this design and say this extrusion is not 15 millimeters, but it is 50 millimeters. Now notice that it is not cutting all the way through because this extrusion was using 30 millimeters to cut material. In that case, I want to use through all. Through all means that it is going to cut no matter what you put in front of it, on its path. So it is going to cut whatever material it sees on its path. So if I update the design, if I change it back to 30, if I want to extrude it by 100 millimeters, it's going to cut everything. So it is extremely useful to make sure that your design is, your part is well designed when you use these features properly. So let's just click OK, and now this part is designed. Let's now maybe sketch on this face. Now let's again project geometry on that face, and let's put a circle there. So midpoint of this, midpoint of that. Let's draw the circle. Let's dimension it. It's 15 millimeters from there. I already took advantage of the dotted line, so I know it's in the midpoint, so I'm going to just dimension it to fully define it. Let's call it 10 millimeters in diameter. Finish sketch. Now it is fully defined, waiting for me to apply a modeling action. Again, I can technically select this side or this side. I'm going to select this. As a default, it is adding 10 millimeters of an extrusion on that hole. That's not what I want. I want to cut. So I select cut. Now it is cutting cutting the material for 10 millimeters. Well, I maybe in the future I will make this wall thicker. So I don't want 10 millimeter cut. I want to cut through all. That means that it cuts everything on its path. It didn't only cut this wall, but it also cuts this wall because I selected the through all option. I can use the to option. When I do that, it gives me another selection here, another text box appears here, another selection box appears here. Now I can select a face. For example, I can select this face. Now it is going to cut through this circle until it reaches to the surface. Or I can just clear that selection and I can select this surface. Right now, I mean, this is, for example, it's just only adding one material, right? Only cutting that wall. If I select If I clear that selection and select this face, the design doesn't change. But actually, the way I'm cutting that hole is different because I'm cutting everything on its path until it reaches to this face, or I'm cutting everything on its path until it reaches to this face. So at some point, if I add something in the middle, this option will not touch that because it only cuts everything on this wall. But if I select this and then maybe go back in the browser tree and modify something here and add something here, and that's just going to cut through that as well. Or again, I can go back to that extrusion and I can select through all, and it's going to cut both of these walls. So again, these are just basics of extrude feature. We're going to use it very frequently in the following videos, and we're going to talk about it in more detail as we work on more complex geometries, more complex 3D parts. You will, kind of get the muscle memory, and with the shortcuts, with the right-click menu, or just with the other options as well. And we're going to use it in more detail. Before we end the video, I want to talk about one little trick, and I think this is good to know for productivity. You can use the extrude to actually create a sketch too. So notice that if I want to create a sketch so I can extrude, I always click on, new sketch and select a face. Let's cancel that. I can technically select extrude and select this face directly. Now it automatically created the sketch for me because it understands this is a sketch-based feature and I want to extrude something. Well, it understands that I need to first add a sketch. So let's say I put this rectangle here and finish that sketch, and it should automatically bring, yes, it should automatically bring the extrusion properties menu for me. Now it understands that I'm trying to extrude it, but it automatically gave me the sketch option. I put the sketch, and then as soon as I said finish sketch, I didn't even have to click on extrude. It brought me the extrude menu, so that I can start modifying the extrusion, whether I want to cut material or add material, or which part of the part I want to cut and how I want to cut it. It is extremely important to understand how you are extruding because that affects your following design steps. It's okay to do it wrong at first, and believe me, making mistakes is a good thing when you are learning a CAD software, because then later on you understand that, okay, I should have done it this way so that I wouldn't have this problem right now. That is the best teacher, really. So, and then you understand the best way to do it. But before I end the video again, I wanted to say thank you for everyone, and a lot of people already started to like the video and share the video, and we get a lot of good comments. People are saying that just it's good to have access to an organized tutorial where it's just you don't have to pay anything. It's completely free and accessible. Your support is all we need. Just thanks for liking the videos and subscribing. Thank you very much. See you in the next video.